That's what I'll be leaving. I mean, what?
Could you do me a favor and not do that?
Oh, just for
It's
you.
interesting for us. Las Vegas Motor Speedway track surfaces properties have been slightly adjusted.
Yep, and that's going to be relevant in a couple of weeks. But all right, as we have people, we'll give this just another minute. Good morning, peoples. We've got Jared and Harley here, and we'll go over. And if you have questions about the season 3 update, please drop them in the chat, or you can join us in Discord. And we'll get started here in just a second.
Oh, so the Red Wing isn't being released today. It's currently pending approval on track signage by the owners and Real World Track.
That was as of yesterday. I thought I saw an update. I'm on today, so we'll have to double check. And the new forums are out. I'll probably do a video on that whole thing. Yeah, Red Bull Ring as of the release of the official notes yesterday, it looks like it was approved. So, alright. Yep, let's get this party started. Alright, so, hello. Yeah, this is literally the biggest patch note release in like the last year. Probably longer. And and a lot to it, a lot of questions, and just figured, what the heck? We'll just do this, go over, and that way, if there's questions, we'll answer them. If there's anything else we can do, we can go find an answer. And, if we don't have the answer now, but I spent a lot of time reviewing all these yesterday as to how they would impact certain things, so hopefully this will help some folks out. Don't forget, get your iRacing updated once the patches are done, which last I checked, they're still going.
Yeah.
Yep. Got Jared with us, got Harley in the background as well, so we've got several people here. Alright, so just starting at the top of this very long list with the iRacing UI, find sessions for content. This I'm not. I gather that you can now search for sessions by car or by track. So,
Well, yeah, I'm assuming this is in the UI to make it easier, because our UI goes by the next race that's scheduled to be run.
yeah. So now you'll be able to search a different way, and you'll be able to search that different way with hosted, official, and time attack or time trial settings. Um, and navigate directly to whatever series you want more easily. And it's available for all pieces of content, even if you don't own it, which is a nice thing, because then you can see if you want it.
Yeah, those little things make the UI better.
Yeah, and eventually, I mean, they've been saying the member site's going to go away for 3 seasons now. I mean, it's eventually going to happen. We see it being added to. So um, now you'll be able to see your paint schemes, helmets, and stuff like that in the UI. Especially when you're looking at different. So if you go and you're looking at a session, it'll show your car and let you know if you need a new paint scheme or not. HTSAI has several paint shops that they work with, so I'd go check them out. And so here's something new also, or well, not new, but if you want your paint scheme to show up in these little places, you have to add them into My Documents iRacing Paints folder. That and then the helmets and the suits go in the base directory because it doesn't pull the info from Trading Paints. It pulls the info from within itself. Trading Paints only activates only starts uploading and showing your paint once you're in a race session.
So you can save that paint into your folder and it'll show up in the UI.
Yep.
Huh. I
Yeah.
can't do it right now because Never mind, I was going to go try it, but never mind.
Yeah, I actually have, I think, one say that when I first started, I didn't realize about trading paint, so I just put a custom paint in there and thought that's what you're supposed to do, and I've got one that'll show up now. So I'll probably be, oh crap, I'll be fixing that this week, just so it'll look cool. Series racing, there is an issue with the time of day setting was not being correctly preserved when you were copying a session. Basically, when you go into the UI, pick up a race, and then go practice, do a solo session, it would not carry the time of day over. Intermittently, it wasn't a constant issue, but it was an intermittent issue. So that's been fixed. Team racing. A neat new feature. You can have like 10 people on. I don't remember the total number for a team from when we did Daytona. I think it's actually 8. But you can have an 8-person team. You can declare drivers, and you can now, once you've registered for a session, if one of your buddies says, "Hey, I'm actually free, I can race," you can add them to it. Once the session has been launched officially, you cannot. But like the 24 hours of Daytona, we had our team signed up an hour before the session opened. We could have changed drivers in and out multiple times if we'd wanted to.
Huh.
And then when the session opened, because prior to that, when you would sign up, if you made a mistake, whoever was added or whoever was left out, they're in. There's nothing you can do. But now it allows, until the session opens, you can add and change people.
No.
This is interesting. It's a graphical thing under hosted racing. Users can now select specific series branding for cars and tracks in hosted and league sessions. So if you have a league and you're running Xfinity Cup or Truck, you can actually choose the branding for that track. That'll be kind of cool. You do that when you're select. Yeah, you can do that. It looks like the current supported is IMSA, P2, GTE, and GT3 cars.
So it'll grab all those cars that are.
Yep, it'll brand everything essentially if you want it to, and you set that up during your thing. It looks like it's just road right now, but I'm guessing that's something that's going to be coming and adding to it.
Right.
And you can now for open practice only events, multiple setups can be selected for use. So you can limit people bringing their own setups in and run high, medium, or low downforce, or run X amount, instead of only having an option for one fixed setup for qualifying and one fixed race setup. You can have multiple. It doesn't say how many, so I'm going to guess there's probably a limit of 3 or 4. But and I think that we're going to eventually see a little bit bigger number in multi-class racing. I think it's 6 cars that are allowed right now. With this feature being added, I'm guessing we're probably going to see 7 or 8 cars before too much longer. The system and the resources are not that much more as they've enhanced iRacing, so I think they could add those cars, and that might be the first step in that direction. AI racing, we'll get back to that as well later down the line, but you have AI racing control now, shorter parade laps, wave arounds, and do not count caution laps. And they fixed an issue that I never saw, and I use AI quite often, but default class-based opponent roster would break the loading screen, so that's fixed. Paint shop textures for driver heads with ponytails have been updated. And I heard this mentioned yesterday just as a laugh, but they're eventually hoping to get the mullet added to it. So some of the guys with mullets can show off their hair. But if you got a ponytail, you'll be able to show it off now. McLaren MP430 interface has been updated. I guess there was an issue kind of with the template. That's the word I'm looking for. And they updated the Ryko logo. And I never heard about this issue, but there was an issue where new users could load into an empty empty UI. Never heard about that one, but glad they got that fixed. Member site, the homepage no longer half loads when canceling using the UI. A lot of people still use the web page. That was kind of a weird issue, but there you have it. And there was a button layout issue apparently with the promotion screen, so that's been fixed. The forums have been updated, and we'll have to do another video on that another time because there's just a ton there. Yeah, but everything will now go through that new forum. Have you played with it yet, Jared?
Well, there's a ton in the new. I haven't messed with the new forums. There's so much in the forums. I'm glad they're doing something with that. Because there's you click the forums page and there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, there really was. I mean, it was a discordant mess for the longest time, and that's awesome that they finally got that. They had been working on that for a while. I'd seen pictures of it occasionally from testing and whatnot. So it's actually going to work a lot better. It's a more advanced version than what they were using is stuff we used back in the 90s and early 2000s. So they just kind of went with what they had already built. And Mike Smith, yes, you can have hair again. The original forum will remain active through the 23rd, and then it will be moving to read-only state for the remainder. So you'll still be able to go read stuff until they finally... I'm guessing that all the old stuff that was posted prior to today will stay over there, and they're allowing new posts on the new site. So there you have it. Private message system will remain on the website until now. And they are going to be working on an API for third-party development for the forum in the near future. Now, that one is a huge one for one reason. There's a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of apps you can download and get iRacing data. There's an iRacing scheduler. There's things like that. Building an API for third-party development for the forums means long-term we could see a full iRacing app, mobile app, where you can do everything via your phone, tablet, whatever, and eventually move to where you can have everything iRacing related from iRacing or from a third party on your mobile device. So that'll be kind of cool. Moving on to the simulation setup, connectivity, improved reporting of handling and dropped connections. That's not going to improve connection per se. In fact, I would expect, as is always with new updates, there'll probably be some more glitches in the next week until they put the first hotfix out. That's pretty much normal. If you've worked in IT, that's normal for just about every release. As it says, it will not fix bad network connections, but you will, if you get dropped, it will take less time to get back in. So that will come in handy. Seen that in a couple leagues here lately where it takes a bit to get back in. So, and now, as I mentioned earlier with the IMSA stuff, cars, up to 8 different car models may now be used when creating hosted sessions. Jared, we need to remember that one for a Friday night event.
Yeah, up to 8 cars we can do a lot of stuff with 8 different cars.
I would imagine that IMSA, like I said, will expand to that before too much longer. Engine oil cooling has been adjusted to increase temperatures at lower engine RPMs. Higher engine speeds are not impacted. That's mainly going to affect road and short track racing. When the car is lower, it's still going to heat up a little bit more like it normally would. And I would imagine you're going to have to watch your tape setups, things like that, at places like Martinsville, North Wilkes, a few other places. Here is some interesting stuff, and this will apply mostly to road, and there's a lot of race control stuff that's coming out this week. New model of off-track detection, and it's going to be four tire detection. That's going to be huge. They even mentioned Spa in here because there's places where you shouldn't have gotten a 1X, but you do. Now it will require more of the car being off track before you get a penalty, so you'll have more forgiveness.
It's probably up the hill at Spa when you're making that quick right and then a left.
Yeah.
People probably cutting that quick right pretty good.
Yeah, and there was a lot of complaints about that. They're implementing it slowly, so Spa is one, Red Bull Ring is one. As they continue to collect data, there'll be more and more tracks, and I saw a couple other road tracks listed yesterday and some other comments, but they're not listed here, so we'll see. I imagine each patch, each update we get over the next season, it'll fix more and more of that. It'll mostly apply to road. There are some oval tracks, though, especially for dirt, that could come into play.
Oh, absolutely. They can get that 4-tire detection going.
What's that track?
That's a pain.
What's that track up by you? I can never remember.
Lernerville.
Yeah, Lernerville, because you could get a 1X as soon as you went over the rail or over the edge, despite there being dirt there to save it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Oxford Plains is kind of the same way. You could get your right side tires off in the grass, and you get a 1X, and yeah, it can be saved that way. Be interesting with that implement if they get Oxford Plains in before next Tuesday before XCal goes there, because they're racing there, and I saw a lot of people last time with right sides in the grass. So any track that is utilizing it will feature a new rules tab in the sim interface. That's for the AI, or not the AI, but the race control will allow you to know if that is active, and probably allow admins a little control.
So you may want to watch that as well, especially if you're running Rolling Robles or something, because you can cut a lot of time in like the Daytona back chicane. If you have 4-tire detection off, I can put 2 tires on the inside chicane and probably cut a lot of time down.
Oh yeah.
So you may want to like check the track, do track by track basis, and make sure it's not on.
That is a very good point, and that is another thing to mention. If you run a league or if you do a lot of hosted races, come tonight, there's going to be a lot of changes to your hosted sessions, and it's not mentioned here, but I know the Outlaws are running tonight, so we'll probably I'll shoot them a message here in a bit to double check anything you already have set up to make sure it's still there, and make sure you don't need to make changes to it. Fixed an issue where closed pit exits could cause a black flag for drivers on the parade lap. That when the field starts into pit lane, that has been an issue. That's been a glitch for a while. We saw it in BRR once or twice where people get black flag for coming to pit road because the field's in a certain place on the track and they hit pit road, and it shouldn't throw a black flag, but it does. So, a lot of different series have dealt with that. So it sounds like they're going to get that fixed. Dirt racing. Opponent tires on track surface should appear to be touching the ground better. That'll be nice for broadcasting, because there are instances, a few tracks, noticed it a little bit Monday night, but a few tracks out there, it looks like your opponents are flying or gliding. They've got a hover vehicle, but last I checked, the Stark family had not successfully made um, floating cars.
Hmm.
All dirt versions of stock car tires have been reverted to an earlier version. The Menards, the Arca car, the Cup Series cars, the truck cars, the next gen cars, the Xfinity cars, and all the legacy Cup, Nationwide, truck, and Xfinity cars as well. Now, we'll go into that more here in a bit, because it does get another update. Some of these do later on. Rallycross. And neither one of us use this, but I know a few guys that we've raced with do. Fixed an issue where the high RPM launch rev limit in the Rallycross cars would prevent the gearbox from downshifting into third gear when stationary. I'm not sure
Huh.
why you would be in fourth at the line and downshifting to third, but I always start in first or second depending on where we're at.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that comes down. That's a setup thing and a launch thing, and something you and I don't use, but I know a lot of the top guys are using it. So AI racing gets a massive, massive expansion. AI drivers are now able to pilot the Porsche 911 GT3R, the new car, and the street stocks. That's the asphalt street stocks. That's huge, especially for rookies. This gives rookies a chance to get some practice with other cars without having to worry about their safety rating and going backwards. So I'm not saying that the rookie class will get substantially better, but there's leagues out there that run street stocks. There's a C-class street stock open setup series, so this is going to be huge for several of these groups.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go out there and get some practice and get some AI practice. If you've never raced anything online, you can go in the street stocks, get an oval track, and try it out.
Yeah,
Do it against the computers.
that will be awesome. I'll have to test that just for fun.
Yeah.
And if Thanos continues running XCal, which I know there's an offer in the air, that'll give me a chance to work on his setups a little bit. AI racing is now available for the additional track configurations, and bear in mind, if it's available, you can put almost any car that has AI, you could put on one of these tracks and the AI would work. Lanier Asphalt, Lime Rock with chicanes, Lime Rock West Bend chicane, Lucas Oil Raceway Oval, Okayama Short. That is that's a rookie road course track.
Yeah.
Oran Park Raceway, all except the North B. Alton Park Circuit, all. Red Bull Ring, all except North, so that's 2 out of the 3 new Red Bull rings. South Boston, that's awesome. Southern National, another great one to have that on for practice. Summit Point Raceway, all except Oval and School. That's another rookie one, so that's going to come in handy. Thompson Motorsports Park and Sabuca.
It's pretty obvious here what they want you to do if you're a rookie is practice. Go to the MX5, which I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive is an AI track. Go out there and practice at Alton Park or uh, or Lime Rock and get some time in with the AI and figure out exactly what you're supposed to be doing, not just going out there and killing everybody in an official race.
Yeah, this one's going to be huge for the rookies. All drivers have improved their racing techniques with the following cars. And before I go forward with this, have you ever read in the previous release notes and patches how they phrase this in the smaller ones? They'll
No.
they'll make comments like the AI drivers have gone to school for anger management, so they're less wrecky, or they have been giving extra training and drifting and oval race and things like that. It's just very comical. I'll go find some today and post them. It's just hilarious how they word it. So I was really surprised to not see it here. AI drivers have improved their racing techniques with the GT3 cars, GT4 cars, Cup Series cars, Spec Racer Ford, and the Spec Racer Ford got an update today. And the Skippies. So that's great, especially with the Skippies. Some of these D-class cars, you're starting to see more of the D-class cars get the AI. So long term, as they expand AI, I think it's going to be huge for a lot of folks. AI drivers have improved their racing skills at Lime Rock Grand Prix, Long Beach. That's good. And Okayama. AI drivers have completed the specialized quarterly curriculum classes. Oh, here it is. Turn 1, Horror Stories and What You Can Learn. Alex Foster's Guide to Pit Stall Entry and Exit. How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Parade Lap. The Sides of Your Car and the Things That Are There, a 2021 treatise on lateral perception. Handle with care, preventing rollover at low track temperatures. 3 essential steps for recovering your race line. Locating pit entry and exits in the wild. Translating track corners to wheel rotation. AI. That's some of what I was talking about. They had a lot funnier ones in the past, but those are pretty funny. I especially like how I learned to stop worrying and love the parade lap. AI vehicle parameters have been updated to improve their correlation to a user for the vehicle for the following vehicles, the Cup Series cars, and I know that was a huge deal when people were doing AI and Cup for Talladega and Daytona, that the AI would just take them out.
Huh.
Yeah, there's some great videos out there of it though.
It's just the AI just taking somebody.
There's a guy that just broadcasts random AI races, and yeah, some of his Cup stuff is hilarious. Race admins. This is going to be a big one because, as I mentioned, a lot of new additions, and it's going to be huge for some of these tracks and some leagues. A new race admin command has been added that can modify the number of laps used for caution or parade lap, and it lists the command here. Which, by the way, we should probably save that. Actually, before I forget.
Yeah, we could have used that at Iowa last week.
You think? Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of, because, and there's some of these tracks like Iowa where you have multiple pace laps, or not pace lap, parade laps at the start where you have two, and mile and a half or bigger, it's one.
Yeah, we probably didn't need 2 last week in Iowa.
No, all right.
Now that I think about it.
No, and there's a lot of tracks like that, a lot of short tracks and dirt tracks. If your league is such that you guys can get parade lapped quickly, it would save a lot of time and headaches.
Now, at the same time, you can go the other way too. Add some parade laps, do a little 4-wide salute for a lap or something, and then if you're on a dirt track or something, you want to do something like that, you can do that.
Actually, I'm going to mention that to Skylar for the January 21st Cancer Memorial Race. Good idea. I'm glad you said that. The commands to add and it is noted that the caution lap length cannot be adjusted until the first full caution is completed, since the caution length is not finalized until then. The number of parade laps may be adjusted immediately just as cars start driving, and the yellow command is primarily used for throwing a caution, but can still be used to delay a restart by 1 lap. So that doesn't change, but you have more control over it. Okay, the damage model, and as we've seen in the last few months, the damage model has been an issue, especially with street stocks, but when that about halfway through Season 2, we ended up with some real problems. So they're doing that. When they say the new damage model has been enabled for Formula V and the street stock, that is they're progressively re-enabling it. That's not a full re-enable, so um, as they had previously done. Although I do believe this is the last damage model update from all of throughout Season 2, because they had reverted and then progressively re-updated and fixed the glitch issues. The duration during which detached parts of the opponent vehicles are collidable has been shortened. So if you lose your front bumper or something, it could impact another car. That's being reduced, so it won't be as bad, or the part won't hurt your car if you're behind them. This should help reduce the possibility of hitting debris generated, especially in a high latency environment. So if the guy in front of you is blinking like crazy, loses his bumper, you won't be impacted as much. The duration for yourself and your own car parts has not been reduced, meaning if you lose a hood and then you drive over it, it's still going to impact your car because it came from your car. Tire sidewall properties for some vehicles adjusted to differ from tire tread properties. These changes should be more realistic to tire and object tire-to-tire contact, so when you're banging on somebody through the turns, that's where it's going to change. Do what?
That's actually interesting. I didn't read this before. I don't know. Maybe I skipped over this. But that's actually really interesting.
Yeah, and there's some tracks like North Wilkesboro where you come off the turn and you bang into the wall, and the tire is going to be more realistically affected by this.
That's something I've always kind of had a problem with, was that you never see blown tires in iRacing. It doesn't happen. So, like, even if you're going bumper to bumper, like we're going to be Sunday at BRR Bristol, there's going to be contact with wall, there's going to be contact with other driver. You get the sidewall, tire goes down. It happens in every oval race you see.
Exactly.
So that's good.
Yeah, and with some of the updates to the tire model as well, I think we'll start seeing more and more realism added. And, we're going back to the whole rookies and the AI thing. That's going to be a huge thing. And Jason Rome has actually said he's offering to test the damage model on some cars. So, thanks, Jason. Tire property changes go to ARCA, Audi R3, Dallara IR18, Indy Pro 2000, and Skippy's, and that is worth noting that these all have their own series, so that if you race in any of those series, be mindful of that. I can imagine that would change once people realize the impact. That may change the way that ARCA goes.
Yeah.
Fixed an issue where some cars getting repeatedly reset in the pits and appear to be bouncing. It just occasionally happens. I've only seen it once, but it was due to a spring dampener breaking, and it caused it to hyperextend, and then the car started bouncing. And worth noting, some curbs on rallycross tracks have been updated to prevent devastating blows to cars utilizing the new damage model, thankfully, because I've run into that. Original damage model fixed an issue where the vehicles that have capability to run the new damage models were not having damage scrape textures appearing when running, when running the original damage model. That was a graphical thing that car runs into a wall, it wasn't showing wall damage type thing. Rendering, they fixed an issue where specular highlights were not rendering brightly enough. That's what is that called? Spec mapping.
Yeah.
That's gonna and it's mainly on track surfaces and cars. Track surfaces not gonna be hugely noticeable. Cars, especially that have spec maps, will definitely be brighter. Fixed an issue where the illumination of the world often flickered and the brightness as the sun moved, especially during sunsets. That was always a bit annoying. Saw it in a race the other day when I was racing. So Glad they got that fixed. This virtual effect one, this first one, smoke may no longer be disabled via the graphics options. However, we've all seen it since they released or updated the smoke, where you've got a smoke screen in front of you when there's a wreck. They did overhaul that, but you can no longer turn it off. Smoke and dust volumes and sizes have been tuned based on moisture levels in the environment. So if it's drier, it'll probably dissipate a little quicker. And if you're running a race in the fog, that dust might stay in the air a little longer.
Huh.
Smoke blending improved. More lingering dust should be visible towards the end of a dust cloud's life cycle. Dust particle volume has been increased during dirt racing events. That's night dirt racing is about to get really, really interesting, because there were some tracks. Were we at Charlotte in the 358s where if you were further back or you're behind a couple of cars, you almost couldn't see it all?
Yeah. I think I had that problem in the Outlaws whenever they first released all this stuff.
Yeah, and the particle volume is being increased, so that may get interesting. Spark effects have been updated. Backfire and exhaust effects have been optimized, so that whenever we see optimized, that just tells me that they are working on, as they add more graphics, they're making sure that they take less of a toll on your personal system. That'll be great. Average track temperature for generating heat haze has been updated to utilize data from the dynamic track system. When they re-added the multi-groove, you didn't necessarily get the heat haze on the non-preferred line, so now you'll start seeing that. Water shaders have been updated, more realistic behavior, including slower speeds along the shores and improved roughness. Water reflections also have been improved. So if you go play in the water, no, it'll be more realistic now.
Not suggested, though.
No, definitely not. Although I did see you a couple weeks ago in a dirt race try and go to the infield pond. So
Nah, that didn't happen.
Okay. Fixed an issue where smoke effects were not appearing for the player car during lone qualifying session. Yeah, I've noticed the last few seasons they've been progressively updating stuff in the qualifying, so that's going to become progressively better looking. Road debris sound levels have been improved. It's the only audio improvement this season. For the pace car, you can now use the sedan pace car for any and all track types.
All right.
Yep. Now, here's the funny part of this, and this is going to come into play Friday night. The pace car driver has completed a rigorous course in stunt driving with this vehicle and has passed all final exam maneuvers with flying colors. After some extensive tutoring on the states of matter, the pace car is now less apt to drive through solid walls. That was always funny to watch.
Yeah.
Fixed an issue where sedan pace cars' headlights would incorrectly be lit while parked at night tracks, and backfire effects have been removed from the sedan pace car. I thought the backfire effects on it were cool, but I think it's awesome that you can now use it on a Pro 4 and rally track.
We're going to have to try that.
Yes, we are. The Italian spotter packs have been updated thanks to Renzo A. Oliveri and Marco Arcid. I'm not going to try it. I don't want to butcher
We'll let you handle that. I'm not even going to go with that one.
Marco A. was kind enough to get the Italian spotter pack updated. I haven't actually listened to the Italian one in a while, so I might have to go give that a listen. Camera tools. More camera tool controls can now be mapped to an analog axis on a joystick. That's going to lean more toward broadcasting unless you're taking screenshots and things like that mid-race or during replays. But because I use a tool for their SDK, really not an issue, but that is nice. Maybe it'll help a few different things. So That'll be cool. The show camera mode is no longer persistent and will now turn itself off on the next restart of the sim. That one's a little interesting. Um, and I tried to do some research on that and I couldn't find a whole lot. So we'll have to wait and see what that's about. Blimp camera option, minimal allowable values have been reduced to nearly zero, so you got more adjustment and control with the blimp camera now. That was always an issue with the blimp. The blimp and the chopper had limitations on how much you could manually change them. So fixed an issue with cameras aim at group logic that could sometimes cause a camera to shake or shutter. I've only seen it like twice, but I actually kind of thought it was cool. It seemed more realistic. Controls. This one is very important, especially if you have Logitech as we go through here. Joystick calibration routines have been updated so that all controller types should be able to calibrate, including combined pedals that operate in the opposite direction of industry norm. So if you reverse your gas pedal to your left foot, basically. Mapping separate functions to each half of the joystick's action axis should be greatly improved. That's kind of cool because then you could essentially have handbrake. Like I use my clutch pedal as a handbrake. You could essentially do that on the way down, and then on the way back up, have it do something completely different. Support for the display on the new Thrustmaster SF1000 wheel has been enabled, and if anybody wants to send me one so I can test it, I would be more than happy to. You can turn this on and off with the Control LCD wheel displays in the Sim Options menu. So there will be a thing where you have to be in the sim, and then you can go to Controls Options and do that there. Tire data is not sent to the wheel other than core temperatures and wear being updated when you stop in your pit box. This matches the rest of the sim where no real-time tire info is displayed. To make this work, you'll need the latest version of Thrustmaster drivers, and you will need to update your drivers and firmware to fully enjoy SF1000. I would think, and not knowing that much about this wheel, but I would think that if you're running a car that does do tire data like a GTE car, it would show tire pressures there, but for the most part it's not. So Logitech keyboard backlight support has been re-enabled, and you got to update Logitech G Hub for that. And it is highly recommended in several places, and I posted it yesterday. Logitech G Hub always needs updated after patches. Support has been updated for the Razer Chroma RGB controller and other ChromaLink enabled devices in the Razer Chroma keyboard lighting effects. Fixed an issue where the second brake and second throttle controls were disabled for some vehicles. I know the second brake is probably referring to the handbrake, but I've never heard of a second throttle.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what it's referring to there.
I wonder if it's like a multi-stage thing, like a rifle, like a long-range rifle. I don't know. Fixed an issue where some analog controls could never achieve a zero input value. That basically is referencing actual Xbox, PlayStation type controllers, and they would never go to a 0 point. So, which would cause you to be either constantly turning right or left. So, telemetry. This one's going to be huge, and I would expect to see pretty much every overlay out there will probably get an update within the next week. I would imagine. I haven't looked to see if SDK has anything out yet. Or sim racing apps, but I would fully expect with telemetry updates in the sim, anything that has telemetry will be updated. And if you have one of those fancy little boxes like what Bill Percy has, the that shows you a lot of data on a separate box, like iFlag type things, I'm guessing that those will probably need a firmware update. This value indicates that the estimated lapse time for every car in the session It matches the existing value for entry for the player's car. New telemetry values, fast repair used, and uh, it's two different fast repair use have been added. This will come in handy for broadcasters especially, but if you're running an overlay, once it's updated, you'll be able to see, hey, Jared does not use his fast repair. Jason Rome has used 872 from Canadian Restarts.
Oh, good. Richie hasn't used his fast repair yet. I can put him into this wall right here. He can use his fast repair. He'll be fine when I dump him. That's good.
You know, that's going to come in handy when Jason has a bad restart. I'll be able to tell who all was impacted and then had
Right.
to use their fast repairs.
Well,
But
7 guys had to use their fast repair because Rome wrecked half the field.
remember that, Jason? Daytona?
Might be in danger.
Yeah. I would not be surprised if here in about 30 seconds he hops in here and starts yelling at us. But logs how many fast repairs each participant has used in the current sessions. These only report on the session where there is a limit on the number of fast repairs. So, if, like our Friday night sessions when we do unlimited fast repairs or no repairs, it won't show any data. ABS brake engagement is now logged to telemetry. That's going to be cool. That will apply for MX5s, especially in the rookie class, because you'll be able to see how much the ABS is having to activate. It also affects the physics, and if you're using a butt kicker 2, the base shaker will. The physics have been updated, so it'll be more realistic feeling. Like you get that when you hit the ABS too hard in a road car on ice and it starts going wah 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 wah. You'll be able to feel that more. That'll be kind of cool. I really wish I had a butt kicker. But you can get a 20% discount through XCal. Note this is currently only available on the following cars: the Audi R8, the Audi RS3, Bmw M4, GT3, and GT4 Z4 GT3. And this is interesting that they updated the Z4 GT3. And actually, they updated the Cadillac CTS V. The BMW Z4 was only available was only used actively for one season, and then it was gone.
Yeah.
The Cadillac is considered still a live car, but it's only used in one series, and it's not a very popular one apparently. But the Z4, you can put 8 cars in a session now. I bet it's going to make its return along with one. I'm trying to think of the other road car that doesn't get used in IMSA a lot. That'll probably be back.
Ford.
Oh, that's
Ford GT.
Yep. So that ought to make Garmin happy.
No, he only cares about dirt.
Yeah. The Ferrari 488 GT3, all the Ford GTs, both GT2 and GT3, the Ford Mustang, which is used in the SimLab series.
Yeah.
The MX5 Cup, a rookie car, so that's going to be huge for rookies, and because it's in like 4 different series right now. The Kia Optima, Lamborghini Huracan GT3, McLaren 570 GT4, McLaren MP4, Mercedes AMG, and the last season or two, the Mercedes has been one of the least popular road cars, but they've made a lot of adjustments to it. We'll get to some of those in a minute, so I would expect to see that car making a comeback. The Pontiac Solstice, the Porsche 718 Cayman, the Roof Cup, all 3 Roof Cup cars, the Jetta, and the Legacy MX5 Cup and Roadster. Simulation performance meters may now be displayed with telemetry, so you can now get frame rate, latency, quality, all those fun things that you normally see in that little box. And there is a link to find more and get that stuff metered, so you could probably actually get one of those iFlag devices again and program it to show that stuff. New telemetry messages have been enabled that allow a remote program to start, stop video capture, and take screenshots. Again, this is another thing that leads me to believe eventually there will be a mobile app for a lot of stuff. Oh yeah, video screenshot and video fixed an issue where in some races with 64 cars they were not showing correctly, and screenshots. This is for the watermark. And I know this has been an issue with some broadcasters when they try and take screenshots or want to get the watermark kind of off screen so that they're not as cluttered. So they are updating that progressively. I think we'll see that gone, or where you can remove it for certain things before long. Now all the fun car updates, and this is probably the biggest thing we're seeing because we only got really two new cars, the Formula V, the VW Rally Light, and the new Porsche, and two new tracks, which we've been getting 4 tracks per season the last few seasons. But because we only got a limited amount of stuff, we're actually seeing more updates, upgrades, fixes, things like that. ARCA for the new damage model, tire wall, sidewall. That was what we talked about earlier. New damage model, spring damper hyperextension have been increased to prevent the car from hopping, and the setups have been updated. The R8 LMS, the vehicle weight has been increased. Aerodynamic properties have been adjusted. This is actually one of the more minor adjustments. We'll see some bigger adjustments as we go through. Steering rate speed has been increased. Allowable camber ranges have been reduced on all GT3 cars. That will affect any setup that is out there now. If you have a setup that is using too much camber or within this range that is no longer allowed, your setup will have to be adjusted or will not pass tech. Caster adjustment limits have been standardized. Adjustment parameters to the front collision area of the vehicle. Fixed an ABS issue, adjusting pedal feedback, and iRacing setups updated. Audi RS3, new damage model, tires thing that we've been talking about, and new longitudinal wheel strength has been increased slightly. That's going to come down to the way the wheel feels in your hand. M4 GT3, and the BMW's got the most adjustments this season. Some of the physics adjustments have been made with the help of a real-world driver. Unfortunately, it was not me. Y'all and pitch. Wait a minute. Jared, Stig, Heasley, were you the test driver?
I cannot confirm nor deny these reports. Let's move on.
Yeah, okay. So Jared was the test driver.
Wish. Probably Graham.
Probably who?
Graham.
Probably right. That's why Graham hasn't been online much lately.
Yeah.
All right. So the BMW M4, the yaw and pitch inertia have been decreased. That you really had to stiffen that one. Kind of had a little bit of body roll to it. So nice to see that. Anti-dive and anti-lift removed from the suspension. Aerodynamic properties have been updated to better match the vehicle's measurements. Yaw-dependent aerodynamic side forces have been added, so this is going to have a little bit of side draft to it now. Engine power decreased. Fuel consumption increased. These two, there's a couple of endurance races coming up, and the M4 was the last few races has been very used and very popular, and now this is going to change that dramatically.
I wonder if this is a real life change or if this is just iRacing. You know what I mean? if this is a realism change or just an iRacing change to try to kind of stunt this a little bit. I'm curious, actually.
I will have to look. I looked briefly yesterday, but there's so much to go through. I did not see anything on it beyond this, but that's definitely something I'll check out. I'll make a quick note. Actually, all these IMSA cars probably ought to. The aerodynamics stuff that's coming. I think a lot of that was just to make the car more realistic to real world, but these kind of things, the weight, I'm not sure.
Is that something a lot of competitive shooters will do? You'll see, maybe this weapon or something will get what they call buffed or nerfed because
Yeah.
it's being selected so much. I don't. Maybe this is iRacing way of nerfing the BMW M4 GT3 just because of its pick rate, essentially.
Yeah.
Or if this is a realism thing, I don't know. But that kind of should be said.
I'm not sure what's going on outside, but dogs don't like it. The differential built and high-speed dampening slopes have been improved. That'll definitely use differential a lot on a road course to help you get through a turn better. So that'll be helpful. It'll be more usable. Camber ranges have been reduced on that car. Caster adjustments have been standardized. Rear camera portal size has been updated, so the in-car camera. BMW M4 GT3 has received an audio overhaul with new sounds for engine, gear, ignition, transmission, turbo, and rev limiter. Backfire effects updated. Wing cap design has been updated. These are just
Cosmetic, yeah.
Yeah, cosmetic. Thank you. I couldn't remember the word. That's why we have it, Jared. The IMSA Racing decal updated. Fixed the issue with IMSA numbering boards not rendering. Rear wing supports have been retextured. Some adjustments have been made to paint and patterns and paint pattern templates. So templates have been updated. Your paint. Now I gotta check my paint scheme. Interface images have been updated and iRacing setups. The M4 GT4 adjusted collision pattern or collision parameters and of front portion of the car, and iRacing setups updated. M8 GTE, the parameters have been updated. That's about the most vague thing they could have said. Tire parameters. I misread that.
Yeah.
So, not as vague. Minimum weight has been increased by 20 kilos. And that is seeing quite a few weight adjustments out here. So I think it's part of it may be a balancing issue, and part of it might be, as you mentioned, Jared, might be real world testing. Obviously, they had a real world tester out there with some of these. Yaw dependent aero side forces have been adjusted, so side drafting and side force going through turns. Aerodynamic drag has been increased. And this one does not say it, but on some of these cars, they adjusted the aerodynamic drag to have more, but downforce was actually reduced. That's going to make the car slower and a little bit sloppier.
Lighter, yeah.
Yeah. Tire wear rate has been reduced. And I know the M8 had some problems with wearing it out. Hopefully the Corvette did not get an increase in tire wear because we've seen what Kellen can do on a set of tires. Fuel consumption rate has been increased slightly. So all the BMWs had a fuel change. Caster adjustment limits have been standardized and iRacing setups have been updated. Cadillac tire spec has been updated. The Corvette C8R tire parameters updated. Minimum weight has been reduced, and I think this ended up being the only car with reduced weight. Downforce increased slightly. Drag has also been increased slightly, which the more downforce you have, usually more drag you have. Yaw dependent side forces, aerodynamic side forces have been adjusted. Tire wear rate has been reduced. Makes you wonder, could Kellen go 5 stints now?
Yeah.
Suspension geometry been updated. Caster adjustment limits have been standardized. Rear camera portal size has been updated. In-car engine sounds improved. I don't remember having any complaints about the in-car engine sounds, but and iRacing setups updated. The Monte Carlo SS, that is the late model, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not the super late. That's the regular late model.
Yeah. Pit stop refueling now uses 2 cans instead of 4. Won't affect the time, will just affect the look, I believe. iRacing setups updated. Dallara F3 for the new damage model. Textures, decals, and visual effects have been updated. Vehicle stability has been improved with upgraded mount hinges, brake limits, and yield limits. So that's all with the damage model. So if your car gets damaged, it will last a little longer. Fixed an issue where backfire effects were appearing at the wrong location. And iRacing setup update. Where were the
It was backfiring out of something other than the tailpipe.
Yeah, probably the driver's head or something.
Yeah, something.
Hey, Mr. Doug.
Hey, Bill.
Oh boy.
I gotta get off here in a few minutes because I'm stopping at the Love's to get fuel. But you're talking about all these tire updates that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about tire updates, say for example, Jared's going around a track and he sees somebody like a Harley up front, and he kind of nudges that car around using that front end, and he accidentally cuts the tire. Are they going to do something like that?
I think eventually that's where they are headed. I think what you'll see right now is if you, let's say you ran a 10 laps and noted your tire wear and heat, and then the next 10 laps you run, somebody hits that tire, and what you'll see is an increase in damage and heat, or an increase in wear and heat.
You're talking about smacking the wall or what have you. You're talking about more realistic damage. That would be part of it, which we just don't see in it.
Yeah, I think we'll eventually see full on you can bump somebody and cut a tire down, but I think right now, since they did not mention the tire cut down situation, I think what we'll see is just an increase in tire wear, and probably we'll have to test this, but I would imagine you'll see a little bit a situation where the the feel you get when you flat spot a tire, I think that's kind of what you'll see.
And before I get off, did you research what I asked you about, though?
Now I got to remember what you asked me about.
Where before we can run the lower line, the upper line, they did the update, and it's now all you can do the top line to do anything. If you go low, you're getting loose. Are they bringing back? You talk about running 2 lines, 2 racing lines. Is it going to go back to where you can run both?
It should go back with these tire models, but they're not. They don't specifically mention it, so that's going to be a thing where we'll have to do some testing this week once everything's updated. Obviously, Jared and I have some setup work to do, and that'll probably be when we test it. I tested the truck at Texas the other day, so I'll be able to take my setup back out and see if I can run high and low in it. I know some tracks it was very easy to run high and low, some tracks it was not, and I know that they said that they updated track physics and updated the multi-groove racing, so I think you'll see some improvement there, but how much improvement has yet to be seen.
Our hope is that we see, like especially at Vegas where they updated everything, will we see more of a multi-groove at Vegas specifically? Or, will it just be single lane for the most part?
Now, I'm hoping to get that's why I was asking Doug about it yesterday, because I think it's more fun, more of a challenge when we can actually run side by side instead of by getting low, knowing they're going to break loose.
Yeah.
Well, last night we saw the multi-groove really come into play as the track got warmer. People could pass at Wilkesboro on the outside, or as the track temperature changed. So I know you know, a lot of tracks were starting to see the multi-groove working really well, and with them updating more, Vegas will definitely be a really good test to see how things go.
Well, I'm enjoying y'all show. I'm learning a lot, so I'm gonna go back to listening.
All right, man. Thanks for dropping in and asking. And Jason just said he's going to try that on Bill Sunday night, or Saturday night. So we will see.
Well, Jason's suspended Saturday night, so he's not going to try that Saturday.
He'll hop into practice just to wreck Bill. And I noticed we got a lot of new people in here following and watching. If you have questions about the update as we go through here, please drop them in the comments. Let's see, we finished this. So we're in the Dallara IR01. The parameters and compound tire parameters and compounds have been updated. That is one of the cars that allows multiple different tire compounds, and you can run different combinations. I was reading yesterday that a lot of guys running the IR01 and the IR18 are doing medium grip on the first one and then soft on the second one. So that'll probably change just a little bit on the when they pit the handling of both, and that'll probably also require some setup changing as well. Aerodynamic model updated. An aero calculator is now available for this vehicle in the garage. I do believe that is in part what we see with like the IR18, where at the bottom it tells you your ride height at speed. You can adjust that, and it tells you how much front downforce, rear downforce, that type of thing. iRacing setups have been updated. IR18 the new damage model tire sidewall properties have been adjusted to differ from tire tread properties. Same thing we've been seeing. More realistic tire to object and tire to tire contact based on the part of the fields making contact. And the tire model is something, should have mentioned this earlier. iRacing is huge. They have one guy that literally spends his entire time going from tire place to tire place testing Pirellis, Goodyears, whatever tires they are using. And up until now, what the tire model has been is the construction of the top, the compounds and everything on the top of the tire and where the tire actually wears has been, the sidewalls have been the same compound. Now these are going to be different. And as we mentioned, talking to Bill, that's going to, I think that is leading toward more realistic tire damage coming forward. New damage model wheel mount properties have been updated, and iRacing setups updated. The P217 just had setups have been updated. Dirt midgets, and this is where Jared comes in handy. He knows more about dirt than I do. We did hear that some of the tire models have been reverted, and tires and tread pattern have been updated. Vehicle weight distribution has been adjusted, and the iRacing setups have been adjusted.
I'd love more info on this, and maybe Hank or JJ Park can give us something on, vehicle weight distribution. My assumption is that they're going to, especially with the midget itself, you'll see more like wheelies on it. So it's something I didn't notice a lot with that car is maybe you'll see the vehicle weight whenever you throttle back, it'll pull back further is my guess, but I don't think it doesn't give us much here. So,
you know what? I think you're right. I remember somebody mentioning that a week or two ago when we were talking about dirt stuff, that you could pull a wheelie in the midget. So hopefully that's going to fix that. Dirt mods. Opponent vehicle properties have been adjusted for approved correlation with the real car. Some of that's going to be it won't look like it's floating anymore, and some of it is going to be when you're just more accurate to the real world cars. Dirt sprint cars, all setups have been updated, so that's going to be 305, 360, and 310, and the fixed setup series for those will have setups updated, and some of that has been a recent issue with running out of fuel. 305s at USA, people were running out of fuel. There's been a few other tracks as well, so that's getting updated. Dirt umps. These, a lot of people fell in love with the last update. All chassis changes have been reverted to 2021 season 1 versions while maintaining tire updates. So the tire stays the same, the chassis goes backwards.
I don't run these cars. I'm not a big fan, so I don't have any input here. But I'm curious as to why they did that.
Chris Standridge, he was talking about how the tire models were a lot better. The first part of the season, he didn't like them. But he said he did tell me in either season 1 or season 2, those updates had made the car feel more realistic, but the tire did not. So it looks like the chassis is going to go back to a more realistic feel. The tires are going to stay where they're at, which they're saying is now a bit more realistic feel. So I think the cars will feel more realistic overall, feel more like a real world ump. We'll have to get some input from some guys as the next week goes on. Opponent vehicle properties have been adjusted. Ferrari 488 GT3, and this obviously has its new popular, or that series in general is extremely popular. Excuse me. Aero drag has been increased. Adjusted the parameters for the front collision area. Allowable camber ranges have been reduced. That's going to be mostly for IMSA stuff. Caster adjustment limits have been standardized, backfire effects have been improved, and iRacing setups have been updated. The 488 GTE tire parameters updated, aerodynamic downforce is reduced, and drag increased. Side force has been adjusted. Tire wear rate has been reduced, so the tires will last a little longer. Suspension geometry updated. So if you have a 488 GTE, all your setups probably just went out the window.
Well, I think this is the same thing we talked about before with the Corvette and the M8 or the M4, whichever one it was, where this is not a car that people picked. I think whenever we ran Daytona, we didn't see a lot of Ferraris, but it was one of the options.
That's true.
So once again, I think they're maybe buffing the 488 to see if they can get people to use it.
Yeah. I know there was in the GT3, I mean, that series is constantly full, multi-splits every hour. But the GTE, you very rarely see it in the IMSA series. And, they brought in new cars last season. Obviously, the new car is always the most popular, for a while anyway. And I think they're trying to level the playing field. And, like we mentioned, they've had somebody doing a lot of road testing here lately. And looks like a lot of that's paying off here. So hopefully, I actually really like this car. It feels fast, but it feels stable. So it'll be nice to see how it runs after this.
It has its own series, so we'll see, what that feels like now.
Yeah. Adjusted the parameters, front collision area, caster adjustment limits have been standardized, backfire effects improved, and iRacing setups updated. The Ford Fiesta rally car mirror tethers have been added. I've seen mirrors go flying off those a time or two.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. The Ford GTE tire parameters updated, downforce has been reduced, and drag increased, and side force adjusted. Tire wear rate has been reduced, so longer tire runs on that. Suspension geometry updated, caster adjustment limits have been standardized, adjusted some collision parameters for the front portion of the car, and setups updated. Ford GTs, even though it says GT2 and GT3, it looks like all of these are GT3 only. Aerodynamic properties slightly adjusted. Final drive has been shortened slightly, and fuel consumption rate has been reduced to suit. So the fuel runs will be a little bit longer, but won't be able to have the same top speed, at least in fixed. Allowable camber range is reduced. Caster limits have been standardized. Packer gaps have been adjusted to prevent front tires from protruding through the fenders.
That's good, I guess.
Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing them protrude.
Oh,
But, yeah, and that's also going to obviously impact handling. Adjusted collision parameters for front portions of the car and setups updated. The Renault 2.0 tire spec updated. Tire wear has been reduced significantly, and minimum PSI has been increased. Increasing the PSI would automatically reduce tire wear, but the significant reduction in that, and not having, I'm just starting to do more open wheel stuff, so that'll be interesting to see what people have to say about that. And setups updated. The Renault 3.5 packer thickness has been unified for all wing angles. Not sure. I'm assuming that means that your wing angles have to stay within a certain range of each other. And setups updated. And now the Formula V, the new free car. New road car, Formula V is available. They talk about how they put it out on April Fools and nobody thought it was real, and now here we are getting it. It is default content for everybody, so there is now a rookie open wheel series in the Formula V. And new damage model is enabled. The Global MX-5, another road car. Sequential shifter has been added to this vehicle, and I actually talked with somebody about this yesterday. So right now, the car is built. You can use a sequential shifter, but it is built as a manual shift, stick shift. They have updated it so the sequential shifter, it actually has, in the real world, it has a sequential shifter or stick shift option, and now you have that same option, so the sequential will work more realistic to sequential shifting. Digital display has been updated to better match real world car, including a pit road speed limiter. Downshift blips have been adjusted, and pit speed limiter now correctly only works while in first, neutral, or reverse. That's kind of cool. You hit second gear, you're going to go out of the. I'd really like to see that on all the road cars, to be perfectly honest.
the fact that it says pit speed limiter now only correctly works in first, neutral, or reverse. Who's going down pit lane in reverse? You need a pit road speed limiter for.
I don't know. Have you seen Rookie lately?
Solid point.
I mean, first time somebody gets on track and they're trying out the pit road speed limiter, you never know what's going to happen. Actually, I would imagine that comes down to the situation where somebody trying to get down to pit road speed hits brakes, and even with the ABS, you can still loop the car, and they just decided, what the heck, I'm going to try and reverse it down pit road. Who knows? So yeah, I'd like to see that actually added to every car so that you have your pit road speed limiter on in first. When you hit second, it automatically disables.
Yeah,
That would be cool.
probably a good idea.
Probably. Indy Pro 2000, new damage model, tire sidewall to do more realistic tire to object and tire to tire contact. New damage model suspension damage limits have been increased to prevent breakage while using oval setups. I didn't realize Indy Pro was doing, or that car was doing oval stuff, so that's cool. And updated setups. Huracan, I'm actually looking forward to testing this week. The vehicle weight is increased, but marginally. Aerodynamic properties have been adjusted. Steering rate speed has been increased, and this one is huge because with this car, it always felt like you were driving. It always felt twice as wide and sluggish, so that will help things. Allowable camber ranges reduced on all GT3s. Caster adjustment limits standardized. Camera viewport settings have been updated and adjusted the parameters for front collision. and iRacing setups updated. The Lotus 49 setups have been updated. The Lotus 79 auto blip has been updated to use more revs, and iRacing setups have been updated. Pro trucks, the Pro 4 setups have been updated. Yay! Woohoo! Actually, looking forward to trying that. McLaren 570 GT4. I know you've driven that, Jared. Collision parameters on the front and setups have been updated. So were the setups pretty decent, or?
I haven't really driven it enough to know, but I don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll get to play with it this week. I'm definitely going to. I have it. I just haven't played with it much yet. MP4 12C GT3 weight has been increased. Prop arrow has been adjusted. Camber ranges on all GT3s reduced. Caster limits standardized. Adjusted the parameters front collision. So it sounds like all the road cars really have had adjustments to the front damage model. Obviously, caster and camber stuff as well. Setups updated. MP430, that's the open wheel car, setups updated. Mercedes GT3 aerodynamic properties adjusted. Handling has been updated slightly with adjustments to anti-dive and anti-lift suspension geometry that just helps the car stay a little flatter. I don't remember that being a huge problem with that particular car, but the front end of that car is so long that any adjustment to handling is going to help. Spring perch adjustment increment has been set to 0.5 millimeters, so that'll allow a little bit more adjustment. Allowable camber range is reduced. Caster adjustments standardized and updated setups. SK mods. Do what?
My assumption on the caster and camber is an IMSA rule. My guess is that's like an overall IMSA thing that they changed this year, and that's what they're doing now.
Yeah, that's. I think you're right. We'll do a little bit more. I'll look into that so we can find out if what other changes IMSA has made this year. Obviously, iRacing, if they try and implement too much at once, things are going to go wonky. But yeah, we'll definitely check in and update more on that. SK Mods fueling procedure has been updated to be more accurate to real world. Thankfully, that was always a pain to kind of, and it took longer than it should, was my understanding. Backfire effects updated, setups updated. Now, 87 cars, we obviously get to the Chevy first. And this one was a huge shout out to Dale Jr. on this one, because this all happened because of him. He actually got drivers, crew chiefs, and chassis people, a bunch of people that worked on these cars back in the 80s, that worked with his dad, that worked with Rusty Wallace. A bunch of these guys got out there and helped adjust the car. The first season, it was closer to realistic. The last season, they made it way too easy to drive. And so now it's going to be more accurate, both the 87 cars. Engine braking has been adjusted. Brake parameters have been adjusted. Aerodynamic properties based on damage states have been adjusted. That's huge, because they were still... You could take a certain level of damage, like to your hood and nose, and still be extraordinarily fast. Drafting parameters updated. That one's a good one. Stagger parameters have been adjusted. Vehicle setup adjustment ranges have been changed, so that's going to go back to the crew chiefs being able to tell them, hey, this is what we did. Although you have to wonder, did Andy Petrie enable a thing on some of these cars where we can lower the rear spoiler at Daytona?
So I wouldn't do it cheat. Probably still lose.
You and me both. Fixed an issue where force feedback could cause shakes at low speed. Oh, finally. That was kind of annoying, especially at Daytona and Talladega. If you were going slow, you're still in first gear, or you bumped up to second gear and you weren't having enough RPMs, it would just get... The car would almost hop, it felt like. And iRacing setups have been updated. And for Jason Rome, here we go, buddy. NASCAR Cup Series Camaro ZL1 tire properties have been updated for when this car is running at a track with a dirt surface. Obviously, that goes back to what we discussed. Engine braking has been adjusted, aerodynamics and drafting properties have been updated, and iRacing setups have been updated. So I imagine there will be some testing at Daytona done a lot this week with the unofficial series, just to
all those changes seem to be universal for all three
Yep.
Cup Series cars, so you really don't need to.
Yeah, and the same with the 87 with the Thunderbird. All the changes are identical. Truck setups only had the only thing with the trucks is setup updates. Next gen cars, engine braking adjustments, tire parameters, drafting parameters. So hopefully they got that updated because drafting in these cars was not great. Did you? How was your race last night?
Actually, wasn't that bad. Bump drafting is next to impossible in this car, but I imagine it's very similar in the real world. I guess we'll see what they changed, and we have another race next Tuesday, so I'll let you know how that goes.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. The next gen cars have a more GT4 damage model type thing, so we'll see. Fuel amount and tow adjustment compliance have been updated, so you'll need to check your setups there. Improved gear shift audio levels and iRacing setups have been updated for all three. Xfinity adjusted the garage arrangement for right rear coil bind, and range has been increased, so that is only to affect the right rear spring adjustment. You'll have more adjustment range, but the coil bind with more adjustment, you have a higher risk of that.
Yeah.
The Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 vehicle weight has been increased by 15 kilograms. Collision parameters on the front of the car updated, and setups have been updated. The 911 Cup, that's the Porsche Cup Series car. An engine restrictor will now be in place while this car is running at Le Mans and Daytona International Speedway. Interesting. And that's
interesting. I don't know. Was it that much faster at those two? Because those are obviously fast tracks. I wonder if it was that much faster that they felt they needed to do that. That's weird.
Well, what I'm thinking, yeah, I think you're right, but I'm making a note of it because when it says that, it's essentially engine restrictor is what restrictor plate type thing.
Yeah.
So I've got to wish I had tried it at one of those before today.
To see what your top speed you could get.
Yeah.
See what happens. Yeah.
The 24 hours of Daytona, I remember the Porsche being really faster on the banking, but once you were in their draft, it didn't matter. So.
Yeah.
Parameters tire parameters adjusted slightly to reduce thermal degradation over long runs. Heat wear, heat causing the ballooning, or heat causing the tire to melt faster, essentially. So the tire wear will be a little bit longer. Fine-tune aerodynamic models so roll and yaw effects are more accurate and have greater effect on side forces and center of pressure. So when it leans, it'll have more aero, a little bit more aero force. The center of pressure I'll need to look into a little further. My understanding is when it's leaning, where the air pressure is most centered has been changed to, if it normally going down the front straightaway, it'd be dead center on the car would be where you'd have the most pressure. When it leans, it adjusts left or right, and I just need to look into that a little more. Aerodynamic drag has been reduced for improved real-world correlation, so Less drag, you probably need to adjust for that. You may not have as much downforce now. Front tender springs have been removed, so the car now runs on single coil springs in all four corners. That is going to change every setup out there.
Yeah.
Everything, you're going to have to start over, essentially. Dampers have been tuned, particularly for bumpy tracks. Differential has been tuned, so toe adjustment increment has been adjusted to allow more fine-tune adjusting. Rear suspension has been adjusted to reduce bump steer. Interesting. Original damage model, rear wing damage now increases aerodynamic drag until the wing comes off. If the wing is removed, aerodynamic drag decreases. The downforce loss due to rear damage has been increased to discourage intentional removal of the wing.
Just take the wing off and make me faster.
Yeah, just slide it into a wall, knock the wing off, and I'm gonna go. But you're gonna be so loose. It's crazy. We did the dirt stuff earlier, but I can go back over it here in a minute. New car, the Porsche GT3R. Just a little bit of a dissertation on how fast they've been, 12-hour races, etc. And yeah, that is a purchase car. The 911 RSR tires updated, tire wear reduced, aerodynamic drag increased, yaw dependent side forces have been adjusted, suspension geometry has been updated. It sounds like pretty much every Porsche setup has gone out the window this week.
Yeah, just about.
And both Porsche and BMW. I mean, I think every road car will need an adjustment or need some setup work, but the Porsches and the BMWs really have gone out the window. Caster adjustment limits have been standardized. Shift lights have been updated to align better with optimal shift points. Hardware supported shift lights have been updated. That's the iFlag things. Adjusted parameters for front collision like the other ones, and iRacing setups updated. Radical SR8 draft effects have been significantly reduced. Oh. Interesting. I love running those at like Daytona, Talladega, high-speed drafting. That is definitely going to change things a little bit. Setups updated. Roof RT12R, and that is the one used for D-Class racing. Fixed an issue with rattling brake pads. The Spec Racer Ford fully updated free car. It's the Gen 3 version to match the real world car. Digital dashboard, increased horsepower, reduced weight, and a 6-speed sequential gearbox. And it will be free content. There's obviously this very large dissertation. I'm not going to read through all of it, but one of the lower class races and race cars. Silver Crown, the iRacing setup has been updated. Skippies, the new damage model, sidewall tire properties, as we discussed with all the road cars. The Sprint car just had setup updates. Street stocks, new damage model enabled. So, yeah, if you're in a street stock, and we had the new damage model several months ago, then they had to remove it. Then they progressively put a few parts back in. And now here we are. They've got the full new damage model enabled, and setups have been updated. And the Subaru rally car mirror tethers have been added. I'm kind of disappointed. I liked it when my mirrors came off. Super late model. Pit stop refueling only uses 2 cans instead of 4. Steering wheel stitching textures and ambient occlusion maps have been updated, so better graphics from in the car. Fixed an inconsistency with the appearance of the left front wheel on opponent vehicles, so all graphical, the car is still going to handle exactly the same, which is awesome. USF 2000, damage model suspension, damage limits increased to prevent breakage. VW Beetle has mirror tethers. VW Beetle Light, new rallycross car, the VW Beetle Light is now available.
Well, that's going to be for the new thing there, the new implement there, the new was it B class, I believe,
Yeah.
will have the light version of Rallycross. So I believe this will be the only car available for that. But
Yeah, and they're going to expand off-road classes up to B or A class now. So a lot more coming, and that's the first step. And they did say when they released or announced that this car was coming, they did say that that is the first in several planned upgrades to the off-road series. I know that the Lucas Oil off-road track. Where did we say that was? Because it's not the one it's not the Rallycross in St. Louis.
I don't remember.
I don't either, but it's the Pro 4 track that has already been scanned and actually has been seen a couple of times in the wild. Some of the iRacing testing was seen in the wild. So I would imagine next season we're going to get that. I'm not sure if they're going to do any mid-season releasing or not again. But we'll wait and see how that plays out. But yeah, the dirt road stuff expanding is really cool. Dirt Tuesdays are going to get a lot more exciting.
That's right.
Imola, now we're on to tracks. Imola, gain time checkpoints have been added to prevent cutting the chicane. So yeah, that first chicane when people have to the turn one thing on lap one. So looks like they've put in some additional barriers that you have to weave through. Some track limits have been relaxed slightly in heavily congested areas, and that's also going to be impacted as they add the 4-tire off thing. Or the track limit, the 4-tire track limit thing. That's what I was trying to think.
Yeah.
Bristol Dirt just had a camera update. Chicago Street Circuit. Visibility of turn 10 exit outer wall has been improved. Visibility of turn 7 has been improved. Brake markers have been updated. Tire stacks have been updated. Track seams have been stitched. I know there was a couple of glitches out there. And track cameras have been updated. Catalunya Rallycross start finish position has been adjusted. And the specular texture map on the timing tower has been adjusted. Spa. Some additional gain time checkpoints have been added. Some track limits have been relaxed slightly in heavily congested areas. That goes back to the 4-tire detection, and there it is. The 4-tire detection system is active for parts of this track. You can find the details in the rules tab once you have loaded the track. Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle, water depth mapping has been improved, and that's something we're going to see at all the tracks that have water. As mentioned earlier, they have a lot of water updates. Hockenheim, some gain time checkpoints have been added to the drag strip area to prevent any advantages during qualifying. So that's coming through the last 2 turns. There are a few places where you could cut the track or go wide. Hell Rallycross, some gain time checkpoints have been added to prevent course cutting and patch some seams in the track. I don't remember. I think like when you turn up the hill, that's the only place you could really cut the track, but you're going to get a 1X anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting. Vegas, track surface properties have been adjusted slightly. We'll be testing that, obviously, in the coming weeks. So I do know that since the last update, I ran trucks there a couple of times, and I can tell you that it does have multi-groove fully enabled. So this is just going to improve the handling, because down low you were loose but fast, and up high you were neutral but a little bit slower. Lime Rock patched some seams around the track. Long Beach fixed the draw order for all fence tarps. That's a graphical thing, I do believe.
Yeah.
Martinsville track surface properties have been adjusted slightly. Nashville Super Speedway concrete oval 1.33 miles long. and the whole history there, and it is available for purchase today. Pocono track surface parameters have been adjusted. You can go test that one, Jared. I don't want to bother with Pocono.
Sure,
No,
I really will. Love that track.
I know you
2
do.
weeks
Uh,
coming up.
yep. Pocono Raceway track surface. That was it. Red Bull Ring has been added. 3 configurations: Grand Prix, National, and North. Although North has a few limitations, and the tire detection system is active for all parts of this track except for the North. Well, it says all here, but earlier it said the North version did not have the limits. So
And I can tell you, if you've never seen Austria, the Red Bull Ring, it's a fun track. I've raced it and other things, and it's a really good track. It's pretty fun.
yeah, it really is, and I'm looking forward to testing that one later today as well. Road America gain time checkpoints have been adjusted near the entry to turn 5 to prevent taking an extremely wide entry for an advantage.
5. That would
1,
be
2, 3, 4. That'd be coming down the hill the hard left-hander, isn't it?
Here's that. I'm thinking coming up the hill to the left.
Let's see.
Wouldn't that be turn 4? I'm thinking 5 would be. Am I counting that right? I'm actually curious to figure that one out.
I'm actually pulling up the track map right now, so I know. Oh, you know what? I was thinking of road Atlanta. So 5 is when you come down, you go through the S's, and then you turn left onto the long straightaway.
At Road America?
Did I say road? I said, oh. Yeah, I guess it would help to look at the right track, wouldn't it?
Road America, you start, there's a right, and then you go down a hill, another right, there's a long left. It's either the left up the hill under the bridge, or it's the right after that. But I'm not exactly sure.
Let me pull up the...
So it's sad that I know that course well enough that I'm pretty sure it's one of those 2.
Well, you tested the trucks there not too long ago.
I've done a lot of stuff there. I've raced that thing in a lot of different tracks.
Should have pulled up the competitor map instead of this. Let's go back a page.
So while we're down a little bit, I did some research on the Canberra thing for the GTE.
Mm-hmm.
That is an IMSA rule where they changed all of the GT, what they call GTD, what we call GTE. All of their cambers have been adjusted to be 3.5 on all tracks.
Oh,
So that's actually an IMSA rule.
okay.
The same thing with the caster. So that's actually an IMSA thing that iRacing just kind of updated.
Cool. Well, so there you have it. Yeah, most of the GT settings and changes are due to IMSA rules now, or were this season, I should say. Yeah, turn 5 is the downhill into the left-hander at the bottom of the hill.
That would make sense.
Yeah, so there you have it. Okay, and let's see. Silverstone Grand Prix gain time checkpoints leading into the final corner have been updated, and Legacy Phoenix Rallycross game time checkpoints have been added to prevent course cutting, and I bet you that's after, is it turn 2 where you do the big U-turn into the dirt, and you could weave through there? I bet that's where that's been added at.
You turn right, and you go onto their actual track, and then you make it on the right. You can cut that pretty sharp, but cutting that sharp doesn't actually help you that much.
No, not really, unless you're just setting up to take the track a different way.
The other place I was thinking was the long right after the jump. Probably cut that a little bit. It would be my guess as to where that's coming in at.
Yeah, that would make sense. And that is all of the extensive updates for this season. As dirt tires updated on a lot of the dirt cars, damaged models updated, race admin controls. I think dirt, because we were asked about the dirt stuff. Um, the dirt tire models really are the biggest thing, and the other thing being making the cars look like they're actually on the ground, not floating a half-inch above it.
Yeah, dirt. They really didn't do much to the dirt. Just looks like the setups were adjusted, but unless you run the dirt midget, which the vehicle weight distribution is kind of big, and the tire compound and tread pattern. But other than that, the modified were adjusted for nothing. Sprint cars, nothing. The UMP, I think, would be the big one. So I'm curious to get Standard on him on that and see what he thinks of it now.
Yeah, I told him last night to expect those updates, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Hopefully he'll be able to test and give me a report tonight on it. But that's a ton of updates. Probably the most significant upgrades with limited new content, but really trying to fix a lot of the issues that have came about in the last couple of months. So,
and if you're curious and if you're listening and want to know when the update is out, it's actually out right now. You can actually get on and download all the updates. Everything is up. I just checked the website, so I'm going to be downloading this before I go to bed here.
Yep. Yeah, there it is. It's telling me to go update now. So everybody, and especially if you've got racing or anything tonight, go make sure you get your updates in, guys. Thank you for your help, Jared. Thank you, everybody who tuned in this morning.